We're rolling. How are you, Danny?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
All the better for hearing your dulcet tones.
Fantastic. Nice to hear your voice, man.
Oh, always, mate, always. And, you know, I've been looking forward to doing this. I mean, even though we only spoke about it in, like, you know, the last few days before we sat down to record it, I've got a bit of a hit list of people who I've wanted on the podcast, and you've been one of them, predominantly because I love your whole take on everything, and I'm really looking forward to kind of picking your brains for a couple of hours, but also just because we don't ever get a chance to hang out.
Oh, we don't. It's been quite a while, actually.
Dude, if you want to be accurate, believe it or not, like, it's 10 years nearly.
Jesus Christ, no.
Is that like Ibiza, right?
That's impossible. Yeah. That was it, right? That was the last time.
That was the last time.
Jesus.
And that is a story worth telling, actually, if you want to do that, because like the circumstances by which you ended up in Ibiza are quite wild from what I remember and how it all kind of came about. Because, you know, I was doing the competition with Coca-Cola with Burn Studios, and Sasha was involved, and there was the big remix contest, right?
Yeah.
And then I think we were talking, and like, because we'd known each other online for a little while, and I said to you, like, dude, like, you need to enter this competition. Like, I have no sway in the decision whatsoever, but
I remember that.
Yeah, you need to enter this thing. And from what I remember, it was like, dude, but it closes like tomorrow.
Yes, it was. I had like a few hours to get the whole thing. Yeah, I remember. Yes.
Yeah. And then lo and behold, like, you did something like in a massive rush of creativity and inspiration within 24 hours, and then was one of the winners. And then the next thing you know, you're on a flight to Ibiza.
Yeah, that was something. I remember having like maybe about 12 hours to set everything up and try to get into the competition. I remember you sending an email giving me all the details, and I completely left my studio. I hooked up my iMac to the living room, and I had to switch I just had to switch the room. I had to get out of the room. It's an energy thing. I do this often. I knew I had to rush and try to get the best result out of this whole thing, and I just went to the living room and I hooked everything up, and I told everybody in the house to just leave the house for like a couple of days. I thought it was going to take a couple of days, but really I just wanted to stay alone and just try to focus and bring this new energy in. And it happened. It was pretty cool. I couldn't believe I actually got it to work. It was one of those very, very crazy experiences. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then obviously, like, that was a surreal moment when you got to Ibiza, because even though we'd been talking for a while, we'd never met by that point. And
yeah.
And then that was like surreal in itself. And then the settings of that like ridiculous villa that they had us in like Talamanca, and all like the the behavior and, shall we say, also misbehavior that happens in there. I mean, you were there for the first week, right? I was there for 6 weeks in the end.
I remember, yeah.
Dude, can you imagine some of the shenanigans that went down? Like 2011 Ibiza, like, you know, Maceo Plex, I Can't Leave You Alone on Crosstown Rebels is like the record of the summer.
Yes.
And there's just all kinds of wrongins coming in and out of that villa at all hours, and waking up and finding somebody else's underpants in the pool, and just ridiculousness. Like, and you guys, you could tell it was funny because the first week was all like the proper like nerds.
It was.
Yeah, because I remember it was me. Obviously, I was kind of delivering some stuff, and then it was you, Ben Shaw, was there.
Yeah, Ben was there.
That's right. Yeah, Dennis was there. Thermal Bear, right?
Yeah, Dennis. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, and it's so funny to think like the people who were there that week. Like, and Kia, if you remember Kia Ferguson was there as well. And he ended up like becoming like a man. He's like one of the biggest managers in techno now.
Yeah, I heard that. Like, I only heard about this like last year.
Yeah, he worked for Drum Code for years.
Wow.
Yeah, he basically worked his way up through the ranks, and then Dennis ended up working obviously for a number of years with Sasha. I ended up working with Sasha as well. You know, Ben's done amazing stuff. You've done amazing stuff. So it's one of those really strange things that when you think back to that week in Ibiza, it actually turned out to be the beginning of something like truly special.
Yeah, it turned out to be. I mark it as a beginning of this new era. I was really looking for something that would, shift things and in the career mode, because when you're trying too hard, sometimes, actually most of the time, you're trying too hard, it's just. It's not there sometimes, it just doesn't really work.
Mm.
This thing was special. I remember that most of the time that we were there was it wasn't just everybody's in Ibiza and this whole glamour-ish sort of vibe all over the place, and to me it was more of a reunion of a lot of new friendships, and just it was very remarkable. It was pretty awesome. It was very cool.
Yeah, it was a real coming together of that week was a real coming together of some incredible artists.
Yeah,
on the side of the people who won the competition. Like, it's always good when you get a group of people like that who are so kind of like on the same page and so like-minded, and yeah, it's a fantastic thing. It really is. And again, like even like the guy who won it, like because it was like Castus Tarau and Honest D and those like really good Lithuanian guys, like like he was the one who won it, and then he went on and did that collab with Sasha and stuff. So it's again like just incredibly special times. And then for me on a personal level, it was massive as well, like because even for me being on the side of the organizer, like there was quite a lot of like reflected glory on my side as well, which kind of elevated me and jumped me off to the next stage of my career. So I'll always cherish those weird and wonderful times in that villa.
Yes, I was rolling through some old backup hard drives that I have. I found some footage from that week. Some really funny stuff on those videos. I'll send it over to you. Really funny stuff. I remember grabbing a few things from us. Talking at Henry's studio. Remember we went up to Henry's studio?
Oh, dude! Like the video of that is still on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description for the show because, man, I mean, and again, that was the kickoff point of mine and Henry's friendship. And every time I'm in Ibiza, I go up to Henry's and we shoot the shit. And what a guy, man! And the vibe that Sonic Vista Studios has is just incredible. Like in later years after we first went up there, because actually that was the first time I met Henry, and we've ended up doing like masterclasses together. We've hung out in like Holland and Belgium and all these different places. And I've actually went and like kind of stayed there and really spent some quality time with him, and he's become one of like a really dear. I mean, I say this is probably going to be a running joke on this podcast. Everyone I talk to, and everyone I talk about, it's like a mate or a friend or a really dear colleague or something. But that's the truth. It's like, we're so lucky to meet these people through the conduit of music, and I'm not going to labor on the current, as I call it, the current global bastard. Like, I'm not gonna. I don't really want to go into too much depth about that, because I think everyone kind of realizes, like, it's shit and that kind of thing. But when you make connections with people like Henry, it really makes you realize like what we're missing and what we've lost in the last year or so.
Oh yeah, very. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I babble a little on that subject because, hey, we've got to look at this whole thing and just sort of understand that it's a learning process, and it's a big one. It's probably the biggest one in the whole, in a century. I don't know. I just think that a guy like Henry, who you meet, firsthand in the new place you go for the first time, and then you end up rolling a bunch of stuff together for like years and years later. It's an experience to keep most closely as possible. A guy like that is always going to be there for you. I mean, from my Ibiza, I connected with many of those guys, and I've visited them in a few occasions, traveling around different countries, and we hooked up and we went for drinks, and we made music together. We're still in contact. Some of them came to Brazil and they hung out with me here, and unfortunately, I mean, me and you, we just haven't been able to actually get this going after a while. I mean, it's been almost 10 years for real.
I know, right? I know, it's crazy. And I realized, I've just remembered there was another guy there, Ryan Davis, who went on to was releasing on Traum and Anjuna Deep and stuff. He was there. It was just so the more you remember the people who were there, the more crazy the talent level you realize was there, man.
I actually caught up with Ryan in Beirut. I think it was like 20. I think it was in 2013, 2014. I think. We played. I think a couple of gigs together over in Beirut. It was nice. We had the same nostalgic moment that we're having right now. We had it over there, but it was obviously a little smaller because it's been a long time. But yeah, these things are to keep, man.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And even though we've not been able to hook it up since, like we've kept in touch, and we've kept it solid, and I still consider you to be a brother, so it's all good.
I got you here too. We tried though. I mean, we tried many times. The last time we tried was
last year. Like you very nearly ended up at ADE, right? Or the year before, 2019. Yeah,
I was gonna get out of India, go see you guys, and then go back to India. And before this call, we had a call, and before this call, I remember we had another call, and you told me, Danny, listen. We talked about nightlife and not getting any sleep and mental health, and we talked about this for hours. And then a few months later, I'm calling him like, dude, I'm gonna leave India, go see you guys. I'll be back like a few hours later, and then I got a gig in Bangalore like 3 hours later. After that.
Dude, I mean, you told me that.
You were like, dude, what are you doing, Danny? What did we talk about, man?
I know, right? We've been through this. We've been over this once already. You had one job. You know, it's totally true. But I mean, that wasn't not for the want of you being there, you know, because like what that turned, and it's a shame in a way because that turned out to be the final ever Chapter 24 party. Yeah. And you know, if you'd have made it for that in a reasonable time frame, where I wouldn't have to have sent you back to Bangalore in a body bag, you know,
yeah,
because that's what would have happened. Because dude, like for
that it was written, yeah, for sure.
Oh, dude, dude, but I mean, I'm talking just off the back of the party itself because it got out of hand really quickly. Yeah. Like it was crazy. Yeah. Like it was me, Rinzen, John Monkman. And again, like because of travel stuff, like Brigado crew couldn't make it, but we got like, you know, we got Daniele Di Martino and Robin Schellenberg, and it just went off, man. I think we started at like 4 PM. It didn't stop until 4 AM, and like by 6 PM, like the bar staff were standing on top of the bar and like pouring mezcal directly into people's mouths, and you know. I've just completely lost the plot. So it would have been great to have you there, but you know, I think with all of that considered, like I think you were better off staying where you were, you know. Yeah. But this happens, dude. But it's as I say, like these things are really important right now to kind of, you know, remain connected through all of this. And you know, as I say, that story of like how you ended up in Ibiza that time is just it's too good not to tell, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the best things are the unexpected ones, at least for me. I consider these experiences the best ones. And that sort of mentality reflects a lot in the music I make, and not just the music, and my everyday life as well. I try to find, you know, an adventure, and even if it's just a little tiny bit, and all sorts of things that I can do. So the unexpected is really throughout my life. It's just given me the best experiences. I mean, at least the most memorable ones, you know.
Yeah, totally. So it kind of brings you on to, you know, obviously partly related to the current thing that we're all going through. Like, how do you get inspired, and how do you, you know, allow the unexpected to, you know, flow through you in a creative sense in the studio when everything is so predictable on a day-to-day level?
Yeah, that's quite something. I've always been into being locked in 4 walls in a ceiling sort of style, maybe. It's I'm from São Paulo. It used to rain a lot more back in the days, and it used to be a lot colder as well. And suburban life is, you know, something that it gives me pleasure. I don't have a problem staying locked in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But what has helped me is to try and realize the reality of things, which at a certain point you have to pay attention to what's really going on out there, and put theories aside, and try to actually bring all of this into your mind, and really understand what you have to do to feel better. So it's been a process, actually. I'm not gonna say it's been pretty hard. No, it hasn't been hard like it has been for a lot of people, but I've been in here for a year now.
Wow.
I don't think I've left the house 6 times. I haven't been in the elevator in my building, for, more than 6 times. I mean, at a certain point, I had to go uh, downstairs a few times to turn the engine on the car, just so it doesn't die on me. And whatever happens, I've got a car working, so I can get out, do whatever I got to do. But beyond that, I don't think I've left the house for this long. But um, so mainly physical activity sparks the brain, and every producer should know that, and should get into that as quick as they can, because when you're locked in a situation like this, you gotta divide the time. You gotta separate things. Being in front of a screen all the time is not safe. It
No.
just isn't. You know. So I've had the opportunity to regain a lot of my strengths that I've lost in many aspects. Reading books was something I was going weak on for quite a while. So that has been something else that has sparked um, physical activity in the house. It's very hard for a guy who lives in Rio. I mean, you want to get out of the house. When you look outside the window, it's just impossible to stay in the house all day. It's impossible.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, when you look at the world out there right now, and you realize you got to do your part and stay in. Um, that I don't think we have a lot of solutions, especially in Rio right now, for this pandemic. It's we're on the second wave now, and it's we're back to the high daily numbers again. It's very high.
Hmm.
So it's like I know people who are trying to live their lives out there. Just I know DJs who are also from here and from other cities that they're ignoring the whole thing. They're just trying to find a way to keep playing and keep spinning, and but I just can't. I can't. I don't feel comfortable. Um, doesn't It doesn't revolve around what I believe.
Yeah, I totally get you. Very similar situation here, although it's a lot easier to stay home when you've got English weather in January. Put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also quite challenging in another way, because here it's the opposite kind of challenge. It's you wake up at 7 a.m. It's pitch black. Like, it's nearly 5 p.m. here as we're talking, and even though you won't be able to see it on my camera, it still looks pretty light through the window, but it's nearly dark. Like, I mean, in sort of November, December, it was like going dark at like 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it's that relentless, just pitch blackness of everything, and we're on our 3rd lockdown now.
Yeah.
And they're talking here about not letting it up until at least the end of March.
I got you. Yeah.
And it's like we're talking any sort of normality, like even relative normality, is probably not going to be until the summer here. We've just been told we're going to need a written declaration to leave the country now.
Yeah,
it's just crazy to me, It's absolutely crazy. So, it's one of those things, like, it's inspiration, as I say, can be quite hard to come by, and I've personally found it quite difficult on a musical level. But, because I'm the type of person that I need like novel experiences. I need meetings with interesting people. I need things that like nourish and kind of enrich my life, in order to provide the juice for me to be able to write about it in the studio. So it's kind of difficult for somebody like me who's kind of, traveled a lot, does travel a lot, and has a lifestyle that kind of, you know, revolves around those kinds of experiences, to kind of all of a sudden shift to looking at the same four walls all day, every day. And like you're saying,
Yeah.
you know, mostly spending your day in front of screens because there's nothing else to do. So
Yeah.
it's quite tricky, man. But you know, it's interesting to see some artists kind of thrive through it, and then other artists kind of not. So you know,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I was going to say, like, you know, are you thriving creatively through this, or is it something that you're finding a little more challenging?
So, yeah, I think this is, and I've thought about this over the months now. I think the thing that most really pushes me is how I switch to a new energy level,
Mm-hmm.
and that has a lot to do with physical moving. So physical movement is very important for me to actually get that done. I have to actually move out of a place, go somewhere else, so I can thrive in anything musically. So the studio serves as a beacon, as a base, but if I'm not out there, uh, embracing these experiences, my creativity level really goes down. So it's been quite difficult to actually uh, thrive musically in the studio while not being able to get out there. What I've been fortunate to have over this year and a little more is the amount of music that I've made before the pandemic. And even before the pandemic, I already had tons of stuff that I just finished and ignored. So for me, the experience has been me checking out all of these records, all of these tracks and ideas that I've done over the last 3 years, and maybe touching up on a few of them, maybe updating a few others, and wrapping up a few as well. But mostly nothing really uh, creative. I guess because as I mean, t- telling the truth is it's quite easy in a situation like this, but um, I don't think I don't think I've been uh, fortunate enough to find an angle where I can see a future. I think that has also um, stopped me from making music over the maybe the last 8 to 9 months. Uh, I guess I'm looking at things and I'm like, yeah, okay, so what are we doing here, and what's the next step? And you're looking for the next step, and you're looking for um, some sort of connection to a resolution. And I guess I still haven't seen any. And I've talked to friends, and we've talked about um, producing and making music during this time, and trying to find labels, and trying to figure out things, and actually releasing music itself. Um, and what I get from all of them is the saying they got from me is like, yeah, what are we, depending on what you're focusing in. I don't know. Some guys were focusing on making bangers and music for the dance floor. When they saw this whole thing fall in front of them, they were like, okay, I mean, either I make music for people to listen at home, and maybe some meditation music, or different kind of project, go into the depths of electronica and IDM and whatever. Or I just sit my ass down here and just wait, you know.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you, because I know my sort of focus. I mean, my focus and ideas and identity were kind of shifting anyway, because of various different projects that I'm involved with, and being involved in like R&D and working on developing surround sound systems for the likes of D&B Audio. That kind of like really opened up my worldview in the last couple of years to what I could achieve. And as you know, I've worked a bit in the film industry, and I've kind of thought that would be a long-term home for me after I was done with the dance floor. Obviously somebody or anybody doesn't see the deadline come forward by a good chunk of time due to an unforeseen circumstance. Do you know what I mean? So in one sense, like it's kind of hastened that kind of movement and that transition for me to go more into orchestral stuff, more into film music, more into music for different styles of media, because that just feels like way more relevant at the minute than I'm all for, again, like the situation that you found yourself in with the music that you have completed over the last 3 or so years is kind of helping you to kind of traverse this time period where we're all on hold. And I definitely subscribe to that point of view of like, that's what we're advising the people who are NYT AAA members, the artists who are on our books, if you will, to, just keep racking music up and then hold on to it for a while, see what happens, and then when the appropriate moment comes, then that will be the time when it's the right time for you to kind of expose that to the world. Put it out, exactly. But it would be much easier, and I was having a conversation on the phone with Patrice Baumel yesterday, and he made a very, very good point, which he always does. Which is...
He does. He does, yeah.
Dude, I mean, if you haven't already, like the episode of this podcast that I did with him from July last year.
I caught it. I was listening through it 2 nights ago. It was very nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, but he was saying to me on the phone yesterday that, these things would be much easier to manage internally as well as everything else if we had like an understanding of where it was going to end, where the light was coming at the end of the tunnel, because at the moment it just feels like completely perpetual and there's absolutely no clear route out of this at the moment. And that is what I think is making it incredibly challenging for a number of people. And, I've spoken to a number of other artists who are feeling the same way, where they've had this rush of inspiration because they've come off the road a year ago when the first wave hit. And they're still possibly running on the adrenaline of like being on the road all the time. And the novelty of like being at home and the novelty of the situation means they get really productive. And then after a few months, it's just died off. And, other interests start to kind of take over a little bit. So, it's tough, man. I mean, it's the toughest of situations, to say the least, man. But, it's sort of talking about brighter times, so to speak. One of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the podcast is because, quite frankly, I have always wanted to just sit here and just pick your brains about production, because your sound makes me sick. It makes me want to retire. Like, I've said this to you on a number of occasions. It's like, you're one of the ones when I hear your music, I'm just going to give up. Like, there's just no point, man. It's going to take me,
not give up.
It's going to take me ball and go home, because there's, that kind of thing.
I gotcha.
No, I know.
I've felt what you just said. I would say the same thing to a bunch of guys. I would sit in the studio and and just babble with BT, for example. I would literally say the same thing to Charlie and many other guys, and in a way they don't know this, but they've been my biggest teachers throughout my life. Yet some of them I've only had contact with maybe through email or not even, and maybe they've answered, maybe a message on social media. That's pretty much it. But I would say the same thing to these guys because they I knew that it was very difficult for me to actually get on a plane and try to follow these guys like a lot of people did. I was very young when I started, and I was coming from a background where music was very different from electronic music. My father had a gospel. It was a gospel business. It was a record label, a gospel record label. It was very different. But music was inside the studio. Music was just getting huge. It was so technology and synthesizers and it was just so predominant. It was like I would go in studios with my dad, and we'd see these guys just replacing stuff. Oh, this is the new stuff. This is something that we just got from Japan. And here's some stuff that we got from Germany, and that really sort of put me on the map to find these guys, because they were making dance music with these huge synthesizers, and so they've been on my map for Jesus, I don't know, I think I was 14, 15 years old when I got into it.
Wow.
Through like Napster. And I remember Amazon was it was a web shop. It was called cdnow.com. That's where I would get the promos on CDRs, and I'd skip school more than a few times to go to Samash and Guitar Center, and I stay in the store for like the whole morning throughout the afternoon, just messing around with the instruments. Stores would be completely empty during the morning, and I would talk to the guys who would somehow they would find a way, just find like 10 minutes to tell me how this works and how that works, and save some money, buy some things, and take it home, and then that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
And so these guys, they mean a lot to me, and most of them are really cool human beings as well. So that's a plus.
No.
that's a plus.
No, totally, man, totally. So I feel exactly the same way. My introduction to it all was very different. It came predominantly from DJing first, because obviously we had DJ culture, for a while before it kind of bled out internationally. So, I was learning to DJ before I had even gone to a club. And it was only later on down the road did the production thing really sort of bite me. So that.
Yeah, when it bites you, you just it's like a drug. It's a virus. It's probably not the best word to say right now, but in a good way.
Well, I get it, mate. I get it, absolutely. Yeah, it totally. It really is, because once you sort of crack that open, and I always remember being warned when I first started learning production. It's there's no going back here. This is a hardwired switch, and you are going to change your relationship to the music quite dramatically once you start to understand the mechanisms by which this music is made.
Yeah.
And that was always
Yeah.
the fascination for me. It was like, where the hell did this music come from? And then the natural next question is, well, how the hell did he do it? Like,
Out.
and that's just been the
Exactly.
question I've been trying to answer for 20 years. Even like
Yeah.
hear new records
Hey,
now, I'm like, how the fuck have you
same,
done that?
same thing here, man. I mean, I got some guys who I just try to go back and see what they're doing now, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna get there, but it's I keep trying, whatever. It's the same thing. I mean, Paul, it's all about the year as well. I mean,
Hmm.
the way these guys hear things, I it's like I know my ears are gonna do certain things that Joseph and whoever else comes here asking for feedback on their mix. I'm like, dude, stop trying to get this done because it's you've got a limit. So try to figure something else to to actually make it worthwhile. So understanding that you have this limit is something, but then when you find some people who are like, dude, I don't, you're talking about limits. I don't understand the word limit.
Exactly,
And
exactly. I
yeah,
do ever remember
the,
this. Remember that time when Richie Horton came to the villa?
yeah,
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 and
yeah,
the thing that he said, and it's really funny because like I actually within the last year, I actually met up with him again and had coffee with him in London about a year ago, just before the lockdown. It
yeah,
was crazy because like we hadn't seen each other since, and like actually he remembered me from back then, which was cool for a start. And
yeah,
one of the things he said on that masterclass was like, because he was doing the whole thing with the audio visual thing and the Plastic Man Live with the cage back then.
yeah. I remember. Yeah, the cage. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And he basically said something that really stuck with me, which was, if I ask someone who I'm collaborating with whether something's possible and they say maybe, in my head that means yes.
yes. Maybe is a yes. Exactly. Yeah, I think the same. It's. Oh, people say, oh yeah, but this whole mentality, attitude, bullshit stuff. I'm like, dude, listen, it's way over just mentality and attitude.
Hmm.
It's way more than just that. Um it these guys will sit down in the studio and you'll be happy to work with them and they'll understand maybe, you know, 30% of what you taught them. Um, but knowing where this whole energy comes from and how to actually perceive it and how to understand it and how to get it into your body and how to get it out of your body, out of your head into sound waves. The best guys will always be like this. These are the best ones. These are the best guys. The best guys will always know how to go through something, how to feel something and translate that into sound the best way possible. When you hear something and it's magical and then you go, wow, this track has been on my head for years. And then, one of those opportunities where you sit down with the actual producer of that track and you ask him what about that track and then he tells you this story. And oh, well, this track happened because of this and this and this and then uh you notice there's this content behind what he was doing.
Hmm.
There's these things are very uh, they're common, but they're not very common these days.
Hmm.
I think maybe you'd have to do a selection, of these guys, and it's just magic when you can sit down and you probably don't know the story behind it, but when the guy is producing, it's like I can hear uh I can hear a sound, and I know that that sound was done by someone that knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So it's we've talked about this. You can. It's like, it's not just, music is being well produced and trendy and full of stuff. It's not that. It goes a little beyond. But I think this whole thing comes with some time, a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing for me was, working with the people I've worked with. It's astounding to me, and I think this is my biggest problem as an artist, if I'm being completely honest, is I am altogether too self-aware.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm very aware of my process. I'm like the method actor, where it's like, what's my motivation? That kind of thing. And the guys that we all love, they don't have that. They have that little analytical piece, like, missing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the authenticity of the moment and what they feel in the moment. And if there is, like, meaning or metaphor to that moment musically, then they will oftentimes double back and realize what it is after the method of creation or the moments of creation.
Exactly.
The most important aspect of it is that it is created in the first place, so you can have a metaphor to play with.
Yeah. That's if you go deeper, and you can, if you have the opportunity to actually stop and think, and this whole process becomes very quick. It becomes almost subconsciously. Of course, this whole thing takes practice. You gotta push yourself throughout, many years. But the idea of sitting in a studio and getting this realization of having something special done, a project where you consider to be special, it has to come from from within. It has to come from stories. It has to come from pure feeling.
Yeah.
This is the best way to actually translate what you're going through, what you want to accomplish, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, when it's allowed to play out naturally, rather than feeling like we have to kind of force it into like a particular shape, or force the square peg into the round hole, as the old saying goes. And increasingly I've seen that a lot with artists over the recent years, that there's a motivation. I've spoken about this at length on the podcast and in other areas, that I feel like the biggest problem that artists have in electronic music is, for such a maverick genre that was built on innovation, and it was built on us trying to find the sound of the future, we've become oddly conformist in a lot of ways, where now we're trying to fit the model of what some famous DJ or tastemaker deems appropriate. And I don't, I'm not criticizing those people, because they've got their tastes, and that's fine. But where I think it gets a little wonky and a little bit weird is when you get people specifically making music to try and fit a particular trend, try and fit a particular aesthetic, or the imagined taste of somebody that they admire, rather than creating purely from that experience that you're talking about, from the heart, and not questioning it, and allowing the authenticity to kind of flow, and then think later on about, well, I've just created this thing, I've created this artifact this, if you want to use an old Hollywood term, this MacGuffin, and we need to find an appropriate home for this, rather than I am trying to machine tool or forcefully mold my creativity in order to get on a certain platform so I can live a certain lifestyle, or I can say that I've done this, or I can outwardly emote an ambition and say that I've achieved a goal, if you get what I mean. And it's the difference between like the artist that we're talking about, and what Maceo Plex calls like the artisan, which is think about it, you go into an artisan bakery and they will basically make you a loaf of bread to order, of like, I want it to be so dimensions, I want it to have these ingredients, I want it to look like this, I want it to be shaped like this, and I want to be able to pick it up tomorrow. So there's a very big difference, and I think there's a lot of artisans and there's a chronic lack of artistry at the moment, and I feel like what we're currently going through is hopefully going to herald a return to almost like a kind of a punk ethos.
Yeah.
In a way. Like a bit more of a DIY, I'm going to forge my own path, this is my sound, and I'm also going to create a path for myself that doesn't include a lot of the gatekeepers, so to speak. And I'm going to be able to create a direction and create potentially a life and a revenue stream for myself that's going to allow me to sustain my current lifestyle, or a slightly better lifestyle, through my art. So there's a lot going on at the moment underneath the hood of creativity and how the whole thing kind of manifests.
May God listen to you. Those are my prayers as well. I've been on this adventure, this I call it an adventure because it's almost like a parallel universe. I step into it, and then I realize I have to get myself out. That's why it's sort of an adventure, because I can sit and talk to my friends and people who are in the industry about this subject for days and days and days to come. Yeah, you want to get sick of something, you go to your regular social media or digital music store, and you hear all the stuff you hear. I mean, you go like, okay, how long have people been doing the what do you call it, like Me Too producers?
That's what Patrice called it in one of his Instagram posts.
That's what Patrice calls it. Yeah, I think I caught that from the podcast. Yeah, I was listening to that part. Resonates a lot with what I think, because somehow, in a way, it's one of my opinion, it's one of my biggest problems. I do not, and I just can't stay in a I'm gonna call it template, if you will. But I remember having this conversation with Mitch Alexander from Michael Castle many years ago. He would send me some tracks for remixing. I pick one or two, and I finish my work. I send it to him, and then after this happened maybe 3-4 times, he said to me, I never forget this. He said, every time I send you something, you send it back to me, and it's completely different. And I thought at the time, and we're talking 2010, 2010, 2011, 2012, something like that. And I when he said that, I thought, hey, is this a good thing, or I mean, should I keep things a little bit more linear and try to incorporate, slower and bring in sounds into a more, uh, controlled environment? and he said, nah, no, don't ever do that, ever. It's one of the biggest fights that I have, he said, with artists, because 80%. I remember he said 80% of these guys are going to open up the last project. They're going to clear a few things. They're going to go in there. They're going to and change some of those things. Use the same synth preset they've been using for the last 3-4 tracks that they put out. And it's one thing. It's almost been this holy medicine for these producers, which I quite don't understand. And I know that many opportunities have passed me because I've received requests to change not a few things, but a lot of things in a few demo submissions that I've sent throughout the years, and I've said no to like almost all of them. And then you go, wow, so what's the point? And it just doesn't resonate with me. I feel it's sad because you want to, like, my idea of seeing an artist grow is looking at a rock band perspective. They've got a sound, they got a niche, they've got this sound line. It's there, it's been there for 3, 4, 5, 10 albums, 10 records, throughout maybe 15 years. It's been, they've changed, they've gone into trendy styles, they've changed into adapted into technology and trends and styles and whatever, but the sound is still the same. You're not gonna get you're not gonna get another Pearl Jam. You're not gonna get another. It's just an electronic music. That's what you get mostly. You're gonna get people like I remember, I'm going too long on this, but I remember listening to the first melodic techno tracks a few years back. They weren't called melodic techno, but there was this melodic thing happening within slower techno. And I was in the studio with a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Johnny, and we heard this lead, basic mono lead from a Moog synthesizer, just going fwa 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 fwa, and we were like, oh, look at that, that's new, like. And then we looked at each other, it's like, yeah, you heard something like this before? He's like, nah, that's interesting. What do you think that's gonna be like? And then we'd see that track grow into the charts, and we started noticing it was really picking up. And then this whole ocean of producers started doing the same thing. The exact same thing happened with deadmauss. Yeah, I remember that, right? I mean, he was everybody wanted to do
and it exactly, and it wasn't even like a lot of people think it was ghosts and stuff, and it wasn't. It was like Fax in Berlin was exactly, where it all started. And like, don't get me wrong, like we're not trashing that record, dude. That record is sensational to this day.
It is. It's bonkers. Why? Because it was new. It was completely new. It was like, hey guys, this is what I do. Look at my sound. listen to something completely out of order, just very different. That's the magic behind that track, and what he came as, as a producer and DJ and whatever. But here's the thing. I can understand trying to. I mean, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite, but if you want to learn technique, if you want to dive deep into, knowledge, really true knowledge, trying to reinterpret or copying, trying to make the same effects or the same sound combinations and all of these techniques that you can try to copy into your own stuff so you can see the result and actually learn from it is magical. You can do that. That's one hell of a technique for you to actually jump your level of knowledge in the studio to a very high level, very fast, very quickly. But maybe you want to release that and call it your own. And if you transform yourself and keep on developing that sound and in a way where it's growing on you, it's growing into the sound, and it's actually that there's this whole life behind it, like a tree, like nature. Sure, keep going, but that's not what we're talking about here. I mean, 80% of these guys don't think about this. They're worried about shit. If I don't copy what Maceo Plex is doing, how the fuck am I gonna play over there? How the fuck am I gonna get this gig? I mean, I don't know. I'm 36. I believe there's still something out there for me. I haven't had a major, breakthrough. Number one hit record on Beatport or whatever, or haven't had the track of the month on BBC or whatever. It hasn't happened for me, but it's because I believe I haven't gotten to a level where my shit is special enough and different enough where, hey, this thing deserves to be spun the crap out of, I look at a few guys and I see their success as well as you do. I mean, we can name, thousands of them right now, and but they're always behind somebody. They're always, completing a list of a roster or something. I don't look at them as leaders. There's a lot of stuff behind being a breakthrough artist, not just sound, but sound has to be something. It has to be really special, not this whole Me Too stuff that you guys were talking on the podcast you and Patrice. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's an interesting one because I agree with you on so many fronts. I agree with you with 99.9% of that. The one bit that I don't agree with is that you haven't hit the level to have the shit spun out of you, because I've been spinning this shit out of your records for years. And, I remember clearly, like, obviously we did the release on Chapter 24 back in sort of 2014, 2015, something like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I can still drop those tracks. Like, I could still drop those tracks today and people will be like, what is this new thing? They go, they say new thing, huh? Yeah, because it's like, and I literally said to someone, I dropped one of the tracks in, I think it was in Brisbane when I was DJing there in 2018, and literally like people running up to the booth. Like, it was Ashley Cassell opened. Well, it didn't open, but he played the set before me. I played the main set. And he, there's people running to the booth going like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's 5 years old." Like, I know you may not have heard of the artist, and that's a fair thing, but it's like, people were literally reacting like this was the sound of the future, and that was one of the reasons why, we wanted to sign those tracks when you sent them over, because they literally had a timeless quality to them. And I believe that, we can probably have this conversation again in 10 years and they would still capture people's imagination in the exact same way, which is what I mean when I sort of jokingly say you make me want to retire, because it's like a lot of your music has that richness to it. It has that quality of, this is something that is going to be an artifact, which is something you could put in a time capsule and come across years later and it will still sound fresh and it'll still sound new, which is why I'm so, fascinated by your process and like what the beginning looks like and what plugins you go to, and the story you told about you playing in that music shop with various synthesizers. It's like, I want to know what synth you bought first and that kind of thing, and what the setup is like today. So like, what's the creative process of Danny Oliveira on when you're beginning something new and you've just had that kernel of like, inspiration? Like what does it look like typically, or does it look like anything typically? Is it different every time?
Oh, there are a few different paths, but first is this. The way it works is I tend to I play percussion. I play the drums since I was very young. I can say honestly, most of the tracks, they come out of beats. Of maybe once or twice I will grab an idea from melodies and harmonies, and those things are going to come into my brain, and I'm going to write very melodic music, and that's another route that happens as well. But most of the stuff really comes from just starting a basic beat. Now, how do you get to the melodies and everything else that's melodic within, just by beginning with a beat? That's what I'm trying to say here is I have this level of synesthesia where I will hear something and I don't hear only something, I hear a lot of stuff, and quickly translating that into colors and shapes. Those colors and shapes, they have a significant response to how quick I can look for something, for an element, how quickly I can look for timbre and find a square tooth or sine wave, and I know it's going to work in there. But beats usually end up these days. Beats usually, when they're the starting point, they usually end up giving me like the techiest tracks I make. And there's also this whole thing that's been it's probably part of your life as well, that I've been studying a lot, actually, where you have references and music from your childhood and melodies unforgotten within your brain, and in a way, you wake up one day and you go make some coffee, and a version of that comes into you, plays in your head, and you go, oh, this is pretty cool. So right? It's instant. I take my phone out and I go to my voice recorder and I record. I I got thousands of ideas on my phone, just voice memos.
Mm.
Um, I'll email it to me later as well, and then I'll bring that into and onto my desktop and look at that and hear it, and then I go, okay, mate. Sometimes they don't work. Sometimes I go, oh, dude, I have no idea what I was doing here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was way too high. Yeah, Um, and but but I will quickly bring that into my desktop and take a look at it, and if it's there, I'll develop it further. Uh, but the beats are very strong within me. It's like I can start with a kick drum and it will easily go into a very, very. Uh, I like to explore depths of, grooves. Really explore the groove within itself. Just really try different things. I'm Brazilian. Uh, I got a lot of rhythm because of being a Brazilian. I think there's just endless and endless ways to translate groove into actual groove. It's just um, there's just so many projects, bands, and the catalog here is incredible. I'm always listening to um, very old records from the 40s, the 50s. There's just a lot of different ideas out there recorded. It's kind of special because um, it it will give me in a way it will give me an idea of try to be a little different and maybe settle for something that doesn't exist out there. That's also negative as well because you're satisfying your own ego in a way, and you're exploring something new, and it's awesome for you to listen at home, and then you want to play that track, and you can play it, but other people might say, they might say no, but um, there's a lot to process when I start music today. It wasn't like this before,
Hmm.
and I wish I could go back to a few years back and just make music for making music. But I feel like I'm not gonna be doing this so much right now, and I'm happy with that right now. So
Mm.
um, I feel like if I'm gonna start something from scratch, there's going to be a very strong focus point on that track. Um, I'm gonna have to sit and make it and know where it's going and why am I putting 6 hours into it. It's very different from how I used to approach music a few years back.
Is that due
But
to
yeah,
an industrial pressure, like a pressure to kind of have music ready for particular labels, or is it just purely a personal thing of before I decide to invest in this, I need to know it's at a certain point?
yeah, I think I'm at a point where I've decided to make music in two different forms. There are two different form factors for me now. I will I will sit here and make music for myself, and uh, I by saying myself, I'm saying I people who listen to my music, they're going to accept it and like it, and there's going to be a future for it. But it's on a smaller uh, a smaller range of accessibility. Like the reachability of that is it's very small compared to when you're when I'm actually thinking about the second form factor, which is having a focus point,
Mm.
which makes a lot of difference. And it doesn't mean, and here's the catch, it doesn't mean um, I'm gonna make something that sounds uh, very alike this guy, like we talked about earlier.
Mm.
It just means you're being smart. I mean, I'm talking about connecting to a label, knowing what the label likes, knowing the people that follow the label, knowing if there is a possibility for you to be part of that family in a way, not just virtually but physically.
Mm.
Um, knowing exactly how you can accomplish all of these things, and actually finding yourself within that circle musically,
Mm.
because that music is going to do all of that. It's going to connect you into all of this new, package,
Yeah.
this whole world that's going to
Yeah,
go
exactly. Yeah, and it's an authentic thing rather than something forced, right?
Yes, yes, yes. It's authentic. It's being completely authentic. It's like, okay, it's like you send an email to. I'll give you an example. Um, I did that with a friend of mine. He's always been a friend. He's always been a friend. Um, but he he grew a lot with his label, and I've always wanted to sign something, but I always told myself, I'm going to start applying this new wave of working with my music, and this form factor is very important for me. So I decided to use it with this label, this friend of mine, and I went into his world, and I asked him everything that I needed, and um, he wanted to work with me, so I already had that. So uh, I gave him music to sign that really connected to everything that is available within his circle. So the music I signed with this label is music that people will listen when he plays on his gigs. It's the music that his followers on social media will go for. It's music that resonates with everything that surrounds him, his label, his life, everything. So, um, and it's my sound. So that was a catch. It's like I didn't. It's like I know some people are trying to get signed out there, and I get an email from the R&R guy. The guy says, "Hey, listen, you got to change this, got to change that, and it's not going to work." So that was the first time I actually um, paid 100% attention to this, and it worked very well because um, the result was amazing. I had um, uh, his the label, the everybody around that idea, the circle, everybody came asking about my music and how I was making that and how they could hear more, and when was I going to play there, and when was I going to be there physically, meet them, take pictures, or play for them, and are you coming to visit us? And uh, so that has worked for me as an experience. It has shown me that it really works. It's really something, I thought it wasn't going to work so much, but um, you read a lot, right? I mean, you can't just ignore uh, knowledge. It's free. It's out there. Listen to the podcasts, people.
Yeah, especially this one, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So it worked, man. I mean, so yeah. There's that. It's pretty special, and it works. It's. I never thought it would, but it does.
So yeah, I mean that's a really interesting insight into your process on like an almost like a kind of an esoteric or quite a sort of metaphysical level. And I wanted to know at a more sort of technical level, like what does the toolbox look like in terms of like DAW, synths, hardware, plugins? Like what's the current weaponry looking like?
Cool. Few toys. I kept my favorite ones. I will literally stay in front of a Virus TI for days. Basically because I can do whatever I want with that thing. The one thing that I can't do with that with the Virus is I can't really ever like the filter. So I'll go to the Moog. I've got an 86 RME. It's quite beefy. It's very old. It's like an old dog. But it's a very special kit. The filter is out of this world. It's just bonkers.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Virus. Like the one thing out of all the unbelievable things you can do with the Virus, the filter is the one thing that kind of lets it down a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, you think they would? I'm not expecting and never did, but there's just way too many positive things about the Virus to worry about the filters. But it's you're looking for different things in production. You're looking for different sparkles, and filters not one of them in the Virus. But then if you got a Moog or some sort of very mechanical, very modular stuff, you can actually get some very good filters on those. So the Moog gets the bass and the filter part completely for me. I haven't found. I mean, there are a few out there, but you would have to go into modular, and I've been there, and I gave up. Maybe maybe when I become, very old, and I'll sit around for hours and days to come, and start my whole modular adventure again. I've got an Oberheim.
Nice.
It's as old as the Moog, and it's just magic. I like to go into those sounds. They're very pads and very beefy polyphonic sounds come from from that synth. I've also I've got a D50, which is very special. Sometimes it does some very quirky things. I think it's a circuit problem. I've taken it to a few places, and they don't know what it is. So sometimes I'm in the middle of recording something, and it does this weird pitch thing where it's almost sort of like an effect, like a post process, but within the synth, the preset, and it's not that I don't think I found anything that activates the glitch. It just happens out of nowhere. and it's been quite something because I've actually learned how to make that quirkiness sound usable on the tracks. But
Amazing.
yeah, I do like the idea to to bring these old synthesizers and process them in a way where you can hear them today, you know where they're coming from, and you can, you know, if you're a synth guy, because I've been around these for quite a while. But you know, I'm not looking to making music based on themes from the 80s
Mm.
or 70s or stuff like that. No, if that happens, cool. Okay, cool, it happens. But I really love one of the things that I most love in the studio is um, the process of grabbing these old synths and doing something twisted to them. You know, it gets me fired up instantly. You know?
Mm. It's really interesting. It reminds me of what Brian Eno was saying when he was at Central St. Martin's Art College, and everybody would laugh at him because he would buy loads and loads of these broken tape machines that nobody wanted. And his answer to them was always, well, it's this tape machine in particular is broken in a very highly specific way. So therefore, it is the only tape machine in existence, or the only item in
Yes.
human existence that can create this kind of sound. And if
Exactly.
you learn to manipulate that, then it's incredibly special. And it reminds me of like, there's a really great, he's a former student of mine. He's a guy called George Evans. And big up to George if he's listening. Like, just a great guy. And, you know, went off to college, did like music production, is incredible. And he's into like the whole circuit bending thing. And I remember one day he brought
Nice.
he brought to my studio, he brought it was like an old, I want to say it was like an old like Yamaha, you know, proper weird like one of the kind of keyboards you'd get an 8-year-old if they were like, you know, learning to play piano and shit. Like one of those.
Like a Casio.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, in fact it was a Casio. And
Okay.
and basically he got it off someone on eBay who had like circuit bent the shit out of it. And honestly, like, you want to hear the, like, I think I've still got an Ableton session with it on somewhere. It's actually triggered my mind to go back through them because the
Nice.
glitch work this thing would come out with, and we paired it with one of those Doppler hardware step sequences.
Okay.
And dude, that was a day gone.
Oh man. Yeah. That was it was a problem for my relationships. Yeah.
We all know what you mean. We just leave it at relationships.
Yeah, just leave it there. Yeah, not actually going to go beyond this. But I, this is the stuff I enjoy the most. Yeah, I like to record and create these presets and these sounds out of raw, you know, presets, and make my own, etc., etc. Yeah, it's kind of an ego thing, but you know, maybe if it really sounds different from what you're getting, the source, you know, maybe you keep that and evolve. But processing is my shit. I like to go in there and get twisted completely.
Mhm.
That's where I live the most. So most of where I stay is post processing. It's effects. Is a game I really like to play. I've got a 909 which is broken at the time. It's just too bad because it's been in this situation before, and I haven't been, just, you know, pandemic. I can't do anything about it. I wish I could, because it's an instant trigger for me.
Oh, dude, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
I had a really interesting experience with the 909, and of
Yeah.
all people for me to have the experience with, it was Arthur Baker.
Oh, yeah.
So he
Yeah,
did
there
this.
you go.
Well, listen to this. Like, there was about 20, I want to say 2014, 2015, something like that. There was a party that Seth Troxler put on at Tobacco Dock in London, which is called Acid Future, and they put it on 808 Day, like the 8th of August, right? And Arthur asked me to help him on a technical level because they needed to put together this like rig of Roland gear, so him and the Martinez brothers could do like a live analog jam at the gig, like in front of like God knows how many thousand people.
Okay.
And basically we one of those harebrained things, 24 hours notice, no sleep, all of that stuff. And eventually I end up getting the whole thing. Like, I'm talking hardware, old school 808, 909, 707, talking in complete sync with all the new Roland era stuff and machine.
Oh, okay.
Like that. Yeah. So you can imagine, like, dude, but you can imagine, like, my heart was in my mouth because we barely got it set up at Arthur's house. And then we had to transfer the thing to Tobacco Dock and then set the thing up exactly as it was on stage at Tobacco Dock, as it was at Arthur's, and then soundcheck the thing. But what was really interesting, it wasn't apparent until we got to Tobacco Dock that we had drum sequences playing on both the Era TR8 and the old school 808 and 909.
Yeah.
Dude, it's not even a competition. Like, the original units just bury the eras. Like, I mean, it's just embarrassing. I mean, you could even hear it in an empty arena.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. And even like no amount of overdrive or analog distortion pedals we put on the TR8, it was like, nah. And that's when I realized the eras, whilst they're good and they're fun, they are effectively like glorified samplers.
They are truly. Yeah. I've given up like a few things I had in the studio for this 909, and I actually bought it broken. It was a very weird situation when the guy was moving to the UK, and he needed to get rid of this because it was giving him way too many problems, and he couldn't keep up with the bills because 6 to 6 months you would have to send it over to maintenance. And I was like, you're sending to the wrong guy,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy is probably doing something very weird to the drum machine, because I've never heard of anything like that before. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not really a fan. I want to get an 808, and I like the 808 a little bit more. So if you want to buy it, it's the price of a car, and it's broken.
And you were like, hell yeah, give me a...
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna give me a discount because it's broken, but I had to get rid of a few things to get it, and it was instant. I've had one back in the day when I was working with a few friends. We shared a studio, and we partner up, and we had a bunch of stuff. And I remember putting the 909 next to anything, and we'd laugh, just laugh, like, get this out of here. Next, who else is gonna try? It's like Anderson Silva in the ring when he was, legendary.
Uh-huh.
Like, who's next? Like, it sounds really beefy, man. There's something about it. And maybe it's psychological, but I don't know. It's like one of these old headphones that I have from Sennheiser and Beyerdynamic. The older they get better. The sound just, I think it's something in the coils. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I feel the same way about monitor speakers. I've had my, because loads of people still ask me about them because they see them on videos because they look quite distinctive. You know, the Egg 150s.
Yeah.
And everyone asks me about them, and not only do they look good, they obviously do, but they sound incredible. I've had mine now for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And they're so well played in. And
like creamy.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
come on.
Is this something we should? I mean, like, I've asked people this question many times before. Like, you go to a store and you pick up some new speakers, some new monitors, and you put them next to your old ones if you can, and you go, yeah, there's something different here. It's not that it's not the smell. It's mine. The old ones that I have, they smell even better than the new ones. They just, yeah. When they're bumping when they're really pumping the low frequencies, I noticed that there's this cream there. It's cappuccino there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all to do with cone displacement, because like when you get like a new set of monitors, like they tend to sound a bit bright and a bit brittle because the cones have time, they need time to soften, they need to be played in. You know, the mechanism of how the cone is actually mounted in the enclosure is a real factor. So over time, as that kind of like becomes a bit more malleable and it sits in a little bit more, it's like that real harshness in the top end kind of comes off, and then that's when you start getting the cream. I mean, the eggs I love because I can quite happily run them without a sub.
Yeah, those you can. Those you can. KRKs,
not so much, right?
Usually don't. Yeah, they don't really need subs, as well as very powerful low frequencies. Yeah, the I don't know. It's just there's something about knowing how to deal with your old gear, and appreciating, understanding how they're aging, and you know. Knowing that the studio, the environment you're building upon is just it's the best place in the world for you. It's just it gets better throughout the years, and you have to really respect, clean. You have to maintenance is a bitch. Everybody knows that, but I only know a few guys who are crazy about maintenance. They're very happy to do it.
Yeah, same here. I knew a few of those guys when I was a lecturer at my audio engineering college. And don't get me wrong, I've got a solid basis in electronics and stuff like that. But I always used to say to them, like, by the time you've finished counting the amount of resistors that are in this Neve channel strip, I'll have written the album.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take on it, really. I'm happy to I don't need to know how the train works to be able to get on it and get to my destination. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm that guy. I'm more interested in like where you can go with it and what you can do with it rather than how it works to an extent.
Yeah. I get into it, but then I go, yeah, okay. Enough of this. Let me get back to making some sounds,
But that's part of the love affair, right? That's part of the.
It is.
That's the price of admission, if you will, And I think in a weird way, it makes you more adamant to make the most of what you have, right? Because I think it's like what I'm kind of going through at the moment, and I think there's a general malaise going on because of everything we've talked about, right? But like I'm having a real malaise regarding plugins, because I'm entirely in the box. Like I'm gonna level it. I'm entirely in the box, and I think I'm coming to the end of that as a workflow. Because when I think back to my most incredible moments creatively, or the most, the peak times, if you will. It was when I'm sat in a studio in LA with Sasha, and I mean, you saw the pictures of the setup. Like,
I remember, yes, we had a few video calls.
Yeah, and it was like, it was ridiculous. It was like it took us a month. It took us a month just to wire it up. Like, before we even got anything out of it, and that was before the building of the modular rig of doom started. Like the wall that counted, shall we say? And this what would come out of those sessions, because the tactility and the character of the palette that we built was so there and plain to see. And it's funny you mentioned about modular, because like I've got quite a bit of experience with modular, but not from a synthesis standpoint. Like what we built in LA was very effect based, actually. Like, and the whole concept was to make the send and return chain of just doom, basically. And so you could take something from, say, Diva or Silent or Massive or whatever we were using, and then pump it out of Ableton, pump it into various different modular patches, and then run it back in, and then either use it on an actual send and return track or layer it with the original sound, or indeed replace it. And that was a big eye opener for me, because that was like, okay, we're going down a rabbit hole here and I've no idea where it's going, but I know when we get to somewhere it's going to get interesting.
I mean, how do you what do you think is happening to the other part of the story? I mean, how are you with the soft synths these days?
I mean, this is going to really sound like hashtag producers complaining, like first world problems.
Okay.
But I have like an overabundance of choice.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem. And, there's things that I really like, and there's things that I've bought in the last year that I really love. Like, there's some incredible instruments out there. I love Pigments. I love Cycles, the thing that came out for Contact, which is just ludicrously good. Like, that's one of my favorite things. The Slate and Ash thing is incredible. Their other thing, Auras, is great as well. But I think it's much easier in a completely virtualized environment to get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, that's what I'm sure. That's where I was going. It's what are you gonna do? I mean, if there is a way for people to, producer can sit in the studio and use virtually these softwares, that they're going to give you some very creative results, but there's something about also there's this the physical part where you're actually moving your body, and there's feeling behind that. There's movement, there's rhythm. Music production has to. Dude, I have to get off my chair in 20 minutes. If I don't get off my chair in 20 minutes with some idea, I'll stop. I mean, I used to have a couch in the studio. I don't anymore. I took it out, so I've got like 3 feet behind me, 3 to 4 feet extra behind me, and I can get up, my feet, turn the volume up, and just dance a little, and just try to find my my common. It's to me, it's common sense. Sometimes when I'm in front of a virtual instrument, I love them. I do. I have my favorites, but I don't know. I was reading something about this company. I forgot the name now. Damn. Free marketing for them. It's too bad. I just forgot the name. They started making these controllers for these soft synths. Very individual controllers for each different soft synth. So they look exactly like the software, and they're just USB plug and play. Just map it, and they got scripts, so you can just install the script and everything maps out. And it's a good idea. I mean, a lot of people go, "Yeah, why would you do that?" Well, you know what? If there was, I believe there is actually, but it's from another company. I think this guy started first. He created this controller for Yuhi's Repro. The Repro 1 and the Repro 5.
Big favorites of mine, those two.
Oh, Jesus.
The one in particular is just stunning.
Yeah. I mean, you can watch some comparisons online. It's doing 96% of the real thing. I mean, it's Yuhi is giant. He actually made a controller that looks like the thing, and he's selling. And I mean, I'll buy it because I fucking love Repro. I mean, I can use it almost every day if I have to produce music. It's my go-to. I mean, those two are phenomenal synths. One of them. But there's something. I think when you talk about control and balance, have a second choice. I mean, the virtual instrument can be your second choice, or a physical instrument can be your second choice. But it's important to have that second choice so you can switch a little, and it only helps you as a musician. It's just better because you can get off your chair. You can, a lot of people talk about these guys with a rack of synthesizers on their walls to the side of the studio, and they go, dude, how the hell do you get up every day and you sit in your chair, you start working, and then you got to get up and go record something and then come back and sit down again? And like, oh, dude, come on. That's the life I want to have for the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah, totally. And you know what's really interesting? And I'll tell you this. I don't know whether you saw it just before Christmas. But obviously, me, I've known Junkie XL for quite some time.
Yeah.
Dude, do you know he sold all of his gear?
No.
He sold almost everything.
Wow.
And it's really, really interesting. Literally down to, he kept some major bits, but everything went. And you think he's still in the process of selling it now. Like, he literally, Reverb.com set him up with his own store, basically. Because there's that much gear. And the thing is, I've been to his house in person and seen it. And his main room was ludicrous, man. It was everything you could have ever wanted and a hell of a lot more. And it was really interesting because when I was there, I was like, how does anything ever get done? Because the opportunity to get lost, because I'm not even I'm talking he's got these really rare things with the original floppy disk drives and old Oberheim stuff with the expansion cards that look like Atari game cartridges and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was.
I remember you called me. You said, "Danny, it's not a studio." You said the word. It's a museum.
Yeah, and it was an incredible thing. And he did incredible movies in there. He did Deadpool and Mad Max and a load of other stuff. But it was really interesting just watching him in a video. I'm going to try and get him to come on the podcast and actually talk about this, first hand. Is he ended up feeling completely creatively overwhelmed by it. And, it's that old Bob Marley song lyric that I always quote. And this is how I feel about my plugin folder as well, ironically. It's in an ocean full of water, the fool is always thirsty.
Yes.
And it was really interesting to see him move into a smaller room, cut his setup down, really like get down to the nitty gritty of like what works for him and little or no more. So I think there's definitely something to be said for that, because even the most like ostentatious of setups can end up becoming like the thing that liberates you is also the thing that holds you back, right? It's like Tyler Durden and Fight Club, isn't it? The things you own end up owning you.
Yes. I mean, it's got to give you peace at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, I've to be honest, I've never had this this crave of putting a lot of money into investing in instruments and building this huge studio. I think I'd spend a lot if anybody out there is interested. A different perspective would be to I would put in a lot of money into my acoustics, and I would put a lot of money in my feng shui, bro. Like,
I like that
a lot.
Because you've got to create the environment, right? The environment is like the room is an instrument, isn't in and of itself, right?
Of course. I mean, nobody with them shoes on in here. Everybody's shoes up. There's some good spray right there if you need some. But you don't have doesn't have to get cranky, but there's something about white space and acoustics, and get yourself a nice monitor so it's pretty. It doesn't, you can buy pretty things, but learn how to use them to the max, and then move on to other things. But I'm blessed to I thank the Lord and the gods and everybody, the nature, to know how to appreciate the little that I've got here, and it's enough for me right now. Maybe one day, if I get a break, I'll invest a little more and figure, try different things. Maybe, I've always tried, like we talked about before. I mentioned modular. I started with this in 2010, 2011. And they were very expensive at the time. They still are a little, but having to go out of the country to bring them in, and I would bring them in stacks, and a lot of time would go into that, and I started to notice that I would need a lot of more time to actually master that thing, to actually make it something as part of my sound signature, and I started to understand that there are similar processes in the virtual world. Doesn't sound the same, never will, but you can hook up a bunch of things in your computer and try to simulate that and make it sound really good for processing. You just have to know the tools to go for, etc. But it's, I don't know, it's just the ambience, the vibe, the energy, all that stuff is really, really important. We talked about this many times. It's the flow. It's gotta flow. Like we gotta. I'm sure we're gonna do this one day, and I hope many other days after. We'll sit together one day. We'll make music, and it'll be quick. I mean, because we've shared these approaches and these ideas, and I think these things are more important to me. They mean more to me than my 909. I'm fucking kidding, but yeah, it's true. But if you go into the computer you will find that Ableton is still the king in arrangement,
Mm-hmm.
and it will always be. Doesn't matter if Apple decides to, put in little modifications in there and stuff. Logic is amazing for sound. I run I run the studio with Logic. It's the backbone of the mixing and the mastering. But the creative brain is Ableton. It'll always be.
Mm.
Uh,
And I've got to say,
it's
the version 11, what's coming, is very special.
Oh yeah. Did you get to see anything?
What do you mean? See, I've got it. Like, I've been using the beta for like 2 months now.
Oh, Jesus, Paul, what are you doing, man? Come on. You're supposed to hook a brother up.
It's very, very good.
Dude.
And there are things like, it's a very typical Ableton release in that when you see they go, and now it can do this, you go, oh, that is it. All right. And then you use it and you go, fuck me. That is the most useful thing. It's very, very, very clever. I mean, it's worth the price of upgrade just for, being able to fold your clips into a scale, like that without having to do the donkey work of putting the notes in, And I've got to say, out of all the major DAWs as well, their MPE integration is the best by a mile.
It's fantastic, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got a C-board block. And honestly, like instant, like straight in there, the wave table synth works phenomenally with it. It's really easy from an automation standpoint. Even if you don't have an MPE controller, you can still access those controls and map them, and it's an achievement. It's a real achievement. And then, with your love of processing, like the new spectral range of effects are going to be right up your street.
Oh, that's good to know. I've already I've paid for the upgrade. I'm just waiting for the delivery. That's good to know, man. Paul's got the hookups always.
Well, I didn't get it quite the same time as I got it about a week later than everybody else. Because I think they prioritize their Ableton certified trainers before anyone else, which is fair enough. You're going to pay the piper, then you're going to get first in line, right? So
yes,
it is what it is. But we've been having a lot of fun with it already, and I'm a very I've got to say, like, from a stability standpoint, the betas have actually been really stable, so that's been really cool as well. So. Nice. Very, very happy with that, but I'm jumping all over the place. Again, maybe because I'm looking for a change of environment, but I've definitely embraced Cubase in the last year as well, and I've really enjoyed that from a film score standpoint, and the MIDI programming is fantastic in it.
It's fantastic in there. Yes. I've been playing around with Cubase here for a while. Music for commercials and TV ads and stuff like that. It's just simple stuff, but the simplicity of how the programming goes into the MIDI section is a wish. It's a wish of mine for other DAWs to adapt, for the love of God.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, they're all stealing from each other in reality, aren't they? So I'm sure that'll happen eventually. Like,
it will.
Yeah.
I think these instruments are naturally evolving. It's a good thing. We must see. I from what you told me, I got high expectancies of for Ableton 11 for sure. Live 11 is going to be something.
Yeah, and if you're a push owner as well, there's a lot of enhancements coming for that as well. Like it's activated like polyphonic aftertouch as well. So that's like a really nice, neat little enhancement, which shows that the push 2 is quite future proof in the way that they've constructed it, because they can update firmware, they can obviously change the the graphical user interface on the screens to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. We've been doing I've really enjoyed it recently. I've really gone back to push recently because I've been doing a course on MYT where we've really ripped it to shreds.
Nice.
And, you know, have the camera over the top and stuff like that. And, you know, we've just gone through the first session of actually just making an entire track from scratch, using nothing but the push and touching pretty much only the push in 99% of cases.
It. Exactly. Yeah.
And again, like, that goes back to the whole feel of like getting out the chair. And one of the great achievements of push for me is that it's made Ableton feel like an instrument.
Yeah, I had the one, and then as soon as I got two, I noticed that it was something that was going to stay for a while. You notice the difference. There is, it's like this. They've made it in a way where it's like a nice retro mod of car. You can just implement stuff in there and go bonkers. I've been using it for a few sessions. Sometimes it's like we talked about the balance thing. You get away from, your mouse a little. No, actually a lot. Just get away from the mouse and the keyboard. And, just hit the record button and just tap your fingers. It's magical. I actually got it for live performing, but that's another thing. I never got into finishing the live performance setup because I was gonna do the first one in India, and then this guy, manager over there said, "Dude, come as simple as you can, and then leave that for the second tour."
Yeah.
That was gonna be the plan. I've always been interested in performing, something of mine live, but I'm talking if it's less than what Kink does, then I'm not doing it.
I get you, man.
Or
yeah.
I want people to actually not see my face because I'm fucking busy performing. Like, you'd be lucky to actually get a picture of me with my face flat, looking at you or whatever. It's been a dream of mine to actually get something like that done. It'll happen. Push is, dude, it's a big tool. It's pretty huge. The spectrum of that thing is amazing.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible. And I'd say what else has been incredible, mate, this conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure. Unfortunately, we've ran out of time, but
fantastic.
It shows you that 2 hours go by and you don't even notice,
Very quickly, wow.
Very, very quickly, dude. Very quickly, dude. And, in the future, we'll hopefully get to do one of these together in the same room, because my ambition for this is to eventually try and get into as many sort of physical spaces with other people as possible, and we'll take this further, dude, for sure, because this has been amazing. It's been a real deep dive, and I've enjoyed every second of it, brother.
Thank you. No, thank you for the invitation. Pleasure is, like I always say, it's all mine. Thank you for being part of the story. It's important to connect this way with other people. This too shall pass. It'll go away. We'll be reunited.
Absolutely.
In our bodies, in the physical matter, very soon. And I hope you gotta, like I always say to you, just keep doing what you're doing, man. It's beautiful. it's perfect.
Thank you, man.
It's got impact, and it needs to keep going.
No, I appreciate it, man. Amazing way to finish it off. So yeah, there you go. Thank you very much to Danny, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. But that's it for today. See you soon.
Bye.
Catch new episodes of Beyond the Studio every single week on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts.